Good evening, everyone. On behalf of our entire team, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to this much anticipated TEDx event, the very first hosted by Indus International School, Hyderabad. It's truly a pleasure to have such an incredible audience gathered here today, ready to celebrate ideas worth spreading. TEDx offers an incredible platform for sharing ideas, inspiring the school community, and showcasing the innovative and forward thinking mindset that our school embodies. TEDx is all about inspiring conversations, sparking creativity, and fostering innovation. And we are thrilled to bring this platform to life right here in our community. Firstly, I would like to begin by thanking our principal, Ms. Farida Fraz, Ms. Priyanka Bakshi, and our two chief guests, Dr. Mani Pavitra and Mr. Ravi Kabra, for attending our event. I would also like to thank Ms. Sri Sudha and Biotex for sponsoring our event. Please accept our token of gratitude. I would now like to call upon our esteemed principal to address the gathering.
Good evening, everyone, our honored guests, speakers, students, and parents. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural TEDx event organized by Indus International School, Hyderabad, and hosted at the innovative and visionary T-Hub. Tonight, we come together to celebrate ideas, stories, and the transformative power of human connection. The theme for our TEDx event, A Silver Lining, is both profound and timely. It reflects the resilience and optimism that define humanity, the ability to find light even in the darkest of times. This theme resonates deeply with our school's core values of love, empathy, discipline, and respect, reminding us that hope and growth are always within reach. This evening, we will hear from remarkable speakers, each of whom embodies the spirit of a silver lining. Through their experiences, insights, and ideas, they will inspire us to think differently, dream boldly, and act with purpose. Hosting this event at T-Hub, a space that is synonymous with the innovation and transformation, further reinforces the spirit of our theme. Just as T-Hub represents a nexus for creative problem solving and groundbreaking ideas, tonight's TEDx event seeks to spark inspiration and innovation in all of us. I extend my deepest gratitude to, obviously, the T-Hub team, and very importantly, our organizing committee, the dedicated staff, and the grade 11 students of Indus International School. Your hard work and vision have made this evening possible. To our audience, I encourage you to immerse yourselves in the ideas shared tonight, engage with curiosity, and reflect on how you can uncover and embrace the silver linings in your own lives. Thank you for being here this evening and for joining us in celebrating this significant milestone with us. Together, let us make this TEDx event not just a night of inspiration, but a beacon of hope and possibility. Have a good evening, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Please refrain from taking photos or recording videos during the talks. Professional photography, videography, and live streaming have been arranged, and these will all be shared after the event for you to enjoy and share. We encourage you to stay seated, focus on the speakers, and remain in the hall until the program concludes. Applause is welcome, but please avoid hooting or cheering to maintain the event's flow. Without further ado, let's get started with today's event. It is now my honor to introduce our very first guest speaker, Dr. Mani Pavitra. Dr. Mani Pavitra is the visionary founder behind Fortune Academy and Creatorverse, two groundbreaking platforms that are transforming lives and industries globally. Through Fortune Academy, Dr. Mani has democratized financial literacy, empowering individuals to achieve financial freedom. Her mission is to make financial education accessible to all, offering practical strategies for personal finance, investments, and wealth creation. Her impactful work has reached over 3.8 million individuals globally through inspiring talks, webinars, and mentorship programs. Recognized with accolades like the 2020 Youth Icon Award and the Lions Centennial Award, Dr. Mani's influence extends across industries and continents. Today, she will be speaking on the silver lining in men's financial struggles. Let's give her a warm round of applause as she takes stage.
Hey, good evening, everyone. As I was scrolling through the social media, I came across this post. This is a post of megastar of the Telugu movie industry, where he's in the kitchen and he's posting about then and now. And can you believe the comments underneath? There is one guy saying, "Oh God of Telugu film industry, please don't do this. You are not supposed to be in the kitchen. You're setting a very wrong example for my wife. Because I'm someone who travels a lot and works very hard right from Gully to Delhi. And my wife is now expecting me to cook seeing your picture." This is not just one comment. There's another very mean comment below it where that person says, "If you get married to a rich wife, this is where your place is going to be. Nothing but the kitchen." Yes? When I was reading through those conversations, something hit me very strong. It's not just, imagine if this is the case with celebrities. What is the situation of a man who is in the kitchen supporting his wife or cooking a warm meal on a Sunday afternoon for his kids? With my work of reaching out to the grassroots level where rural women, we were educating them continuously for the importance of financial literacy, there is one thing which came across very, very strongly. Most of them say, "Ma'am, we go out and work, but after coming home also, we are the ones who have to take care of the entire burden." When I say, why can't you delegate your tasks? Why can't you ask your husband to help you or your kids to help you? And most often they say only one thing: forget about that. The stress of talking to them also is something which is really burdensome. Even if there is a man who is going out of the way to support his spouse and kids, the neighborhood auntie would poke her nose and comment, "I saw your husband in the kitchen. Is he not going to work nowadays? I saw your husband at the washing machine." Yes, this mindset is not limited to rural India, but also in highly educated urban spaces, where they sneak peek into the corridors of the open balconies and do these comments. So what am I talking about here, my dear friends? Society traditionally has put the burden of being man as the main provider for the family. And right from the childhood, let it be a school-going kid or a growing adult, the stress is deeply ingrained into men that they are the providers, they are the authority in the family. When from such a young age, we are putting so much intense pressure in men, what is the outcome of it when lot of girls are getting educated? The society is not having the same role anymore, right? All the girl children are also successful. They are doing really well in their corporate roles as well as the multiple roles that they are playing. But is there a balance or is there a difference? If you look at it, if you look at the statistics, they're really horrifying. When men internalize the pressure, especially the financial stress because of excess loans and not having the right financial education, 79,300 men commit more suicide compared to women. And this is not just an Indian issue, nor is it a rural issue. This is a global phenomena. In US, 4x more men commit suicide because of the financial pressures that are being pushed onto them. This is an internal manifestation which is happening because men don't communicate. Men take the full responsibility and burden and they go into silence. In my financial education classes, when women and men come together as families to work with me, when woman has an issue, she immediately reaches out. But whereas a man, he disappears. He goes into complete silence. He wants to solve that entire issue on his own and then he'll appear back when everything is sorted. This is the internalization of a pressure. But what happens in situations where the pressure is externalized? In workspaces, you see men not able to handle the power of women. Right? They don't accept them in leadership positions, because of which they are continuously taunting the women in the leadership roles and talking behind their backs in the back offices. Not just that, the abuse on women has increased multifold because of the loss of power, perceived power that a man feels. Though there is no actual loss of control, man perceives loss of control when the wife is independent and financially strong. Why? Because there is no shared responsibility happening. The externalizing of the stress leads to increase in abuse on women to a great extent. Most of the marital abuse is not even spoken outwards. And for the man to handle a woman at the workplace and come home and handle in the house, both become really a tough challenge, right? What do men need to do in this day and age where the girls are having equal opportunities and equally educated and equally can support the family? How do we work towards it? There is something called as the Easterlin paradox. A professor by the name Richard Easterlin in the University of Pennsylvania, he's an economics professor, he measured the happiness index, the happiness economy of happiness is what he has studied. And what he says that with age, when the man earns more, is there an increased happiness? What do you think, guys? Do you think there is an increased happiness? Absolutely no. With more increase in earnings, the happiness levels decreases. And an unhappy person is on a hedonic treadmill. The earning is going up, but the dissatisfaction is increasing and they are revolving in the same space. If we do not go beyond these gender roles and if we do not help people around us, if you watch in the families, if you have conversations with your friends, you will be able to glean a deeper insights into this. When man is associated with earning and time, the hedonic adaptation happens, there is no more satisfaction in the work. That's because men's crucial years have been associated with work and increasing financial responsibilities. I have helped more than 1 lakh plus people through my online sessions. It's not just one person, but families coming together and discussing these issues continuously. When I started off with my first organization, I wanted to help 1 million mothers. But then, after seeing the actual issue on the ground, I realized it is not enough to just empower women. The need is there for both members of the family to come together and work out this and have these conversations around money and, most importantly, around childcare. What gives purpose, what gives happiness is never money, right? While money is important, the impact is going to be broken relationships and unhappy families. So, how can we bridge the gap and move forward together? While we are educating women on sharing the financial responsibility, right? The discussion should happen in our living rooms. We need to sit together and talk about shared responsibilities. Women earnings also should contribute towards the investments and the overall planning. Because an earning would never be enough for a family, because the lifestyle would always increase with more earning. But how do we engage in activities where it is a relationship building and where we are living our higher purpose? If these discussions happen and we are open to these conversations, that is when change is going to happen. Marriage is not a hierarchy game. Marriage should be a shared partnership where we are supporting each other's goals and growing together, right? It is not just with respect to finances, but also with respect to the happiness and the bonding too. As we grow richer in life, it is very important to create those rich moments for the families together. And most important thing, it's high time we embrace openness towards masculinity, which is changing dramatically. Emotional intelligence, vulnerability and adaptability need to be advocated, especially in spaces for men. Also, men should go through a continuous learning process and especially build up skills of emotional intelligence and, most importantly, communication skills. Yes, if this communication skills open up, forget about shared growth, right? As a society, we would be regressing. So, embracing the bigger picture of masculinity rather than the traditional gender roles which the society is expecting us to do. It has to start with each one of us. So, are you all ready to break free and shape the future? In this process, the most important thing is to build a network for men where they feel safe to discuss their challenges, right? As women, we have a shared sisterhood. We reach out to one of our family members in times of need or distress, whereas men don't do it. Each of us gets that chance to create that legacy in our life. Let's not let go by turning away from the harsh reality that we are facing. Let's not look down or turn away, and let's step up in every place that we are in. In your house, speak up. At work, speak up. Speak up to support. Speak up to help each other come together. Because in the dramatically changing landscape of finances, women are going to take their place no matter what. But are men ready to discuss about their vulnerabilities with the same strength that women are doing with respect to their finances? The time is now. If we are not ready to lend a ear, if you are not going to go and discuss this right now, then we'll see not a movement forward, but a step backward. Thank you. This is Dr. Mani Pavitra.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pavitra, for that thought-provoking session. Up next, we have Mr. Ravi Kabra. Mr. Ravi Kabra, the co-founder of Skippy, India's first ice pop brand and the first brand to be on Shark Tank India, receiving an all-shark deal, describes his resilience through his innovative journey in the startup world. Overcoming challenges with determination, the brand revolutionized frozen treats markets. Skippy's success story highlights the power of perseverance, adaptability, and entrepreneurial spirit in building a thriving business against all odds today. Mr. Ravi will be speaking about the startup story of Skippy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kabra to share his inspiring story with us all.
All right, good evening one and all, and thank you for having me here. My name is Ravi Kabra. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Skippy Ice Pops, as said, India's first ice popsicle brand. I'm going to be talking about resilience today. A very simple, subtle word, usually often used, but always undermined by the power that it brings into your life. A power which somebody embraces can become victorious. A power when somebody neglects can turn the entire story upside down. And of course, with resilience I'm going to talk about, I will also cover its cousin called persistence, because they go all hand in hand. The persistence is the younger brother, the cousin, who is always doing things every day in and day out, whereas resilience, on the other side, is the big brother who tells him to keep doing it no matter what the results are. This story of the cousins, I would like to bring about with the story of Skippy, the way this brand evolved through my life journey, and the way things have moved forward, the challenges that we have faced, and how typically the two cousins, persistence and resilience, have actually supported us in the way of the way the life has moved on. Dial Me Guru. 20 years back, when I've just moved not out of college, but after doing 10 years of stint with my father's business, I decided to do something on my own. This was a brand that I started, a look-alike, feel-alike brand of Just Dial. And I realized that things are going to be all simple and easy to conquer. Coming out of my father's business, it gave me the confidence, or rather the overconfidence, to believe that life is going to be all simply served on a silver platter. And there I did the biggest mistake of my life. I started Dial Me Guru with a lot of energy which flowed into the wrong direction. Dial Me Guru scaled up dramatically, but as fast as it scaled, it literally died down the fastest to what I can believe was the biggest mistake in terms of my professional career that I could make. Now this brought me to a place, a situation in life where even the Guptaji's uncle and his beta started to tell me how to do business. Even the person next door who had never been in a business decided to tell me how to do business. A little failure, and this particular failure, took away my pride, my ego, my self-respect, and a lot more things that has gone wrong. But this was a time where I decided that I need to move on. And that brings me to a phrase, a very important part of my life, a phrase which I never forget, which I keep repeating myself. And that is a clear undermining definition of resilience. The phrase is, and you got to think about it as well, today is the first day of the rest of your life. I'll repeat it again. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. For people who understand that they've done something so terribly wrong that can never bring back the life together, this is the phrase I always wanted to quote. Because I believe that no matter what mistakes I have done in my life, the resilience which comes into this phrase kept me moving on and on. No matter whether this wasn't the greatest part of my life, I decided to consider that as the first day of my life and move on from there. So what happened? This failure pushed me out of India. I said, okay, let me take a break. Let me move out of India. I decided not to work for myself, but rather to work for some good companies, learn something, and bring that knowledge, that experience back to India and start something afresh. Of course, while I was away in Australia with my family, things were not that easy. Because a person who's been an entrepreneur for a long time, working with someone has always been difficult. That's where I realized that this resilience can only be built when I can continue to perceive every day as a learning exercise for myself. And then, after 6 years of living abroad, I thought, let's me do something exciting, and I decided to move back to India with an idea, a simple idea of making ice popsicles. Of course, everyone thinks that what's there in an ice popsicle, right? It's a very simple thought, a simple product to serve and to make a good business. But a lot goes into it. What you see on the screen is me and my wife, Anuja, my wife and my co-founder, taking the first batch of Skippy in our humble factory, in our production plant in Hyderabad. That's a little team of ours, me standing somewhere there in the corner. And at the bottom of the screen, that's my office 2.5, 3 years back. A very humble beginning where we decided to do everything on our own. We packed the products ourselves. We produced the products ourselves. We wanted to do everything on our own. In the initial days, it was not at all easy. Most of the big giants in India, the supermarkets of Hyderabad, were not so welcoming to us because they were not very sure if that was going to be a good product for them to put on the shelves or not. But we continue to perceive a path which made us understand that we have to show resilience in terms of all the rejections, all the setbacks that we were getting in the market. Within no time, I would say a couple of weeks down the line, we realized that all the supermarkets of Hyderabad decided to onboard us. And that was the turning point where we decided to go faster and faster into the market. In terms of persistence, a lot of times I get a question asked by a lot of people who are looking to get into startups or being an entrepreneur. How do you do a market research when we don't have funds? And I'll quote you this with an example that when me and Anuja decided to move further into this ice popsicle category, as a founder, both of us stood right in front of a theater, Prasad's IMAX, which we all know of, and we started to do free sampling in a thermocol box to everybody who came out of a movie. Initially, the success was superb. In India, who doesn't like free stuff, right? Everyone grabbed onto an ice pops because it was a hot, sunny afternoon. But then we thought, let's start charging people for it. And that's where we started to charge them 20 bucks for an ice popsicle. Those ice popsicles did not have a label. It did not have a barcode, no FSSI number, but still people decided to buy. And that gave us a proof of concept, a concept where we believe that people are willing to pay for it, and we continue to move further from there. But the entire courage of going out into the public and standing there and selling like a hawker comes only through resilience. A resilience power which never lets you back down. It always keeps telling you that I need to move on no matter what people think, what customers think. I just need to keep moving forward. What happened after that? When you keep working hard, and I quote this all the time, when you work hard, there's something that comes as a luck. One particular night, we created history by being the first brand on Shark Tank India to receive an all-shark deal. And this was a turning point of our life. Many times I've been told that, Ravi, you have been lucky. I said, yes, probably yes. But do you know what is the definition of luck? Luck is when hard work meets opportunity. I'll repeat that for you. Luck is when hard work meets opportunity. The opportunity was Shark Tank India. The hard work was already there. It was just a time for that hard work to meet an opportunity like a platform called Shark Tank India. We went there. We saw multiple brands getting rejected. I've seen founders crying out of the platform out of the chute. I've seen founders shouting at the chute, and there, me and Anuja sitting there with an ice popsicle brand, wondering why and would anybody even invest into our brand. But with a lot of confidence and with sheer resilience to not deter back, not to back out, we continued to stand there in front of the 5 sharks and pitch in confidence. And with luck or the hard work that we had generated over the last few months, we were granted investment from all the 5, or rather the 6 sharks, and we became the first one to get so. Now, what happened after that? I'm sure everybody would agree that life would have been like a hoo-la-la, where we could walk the path of flowers and roses, and things would have been absolutely easy like a cakewalk. But in turn, the life decided to take a turn. Everything changed for us. Over the night, a small little brand, which even not many people in my locality would know, started to become a national brand. And sometimes it does have an adverse effect. An example, a small town in the village, in the forest of Jharkhand, somebody booked an order online and expected that the delivery should happen next day itself. And that was a time when people still had the courage to wait for next day, not for next 10 minutes. But yes, they expected that the delivery happened the next day, and we started to get abused by multiple such activities, events, where people expected us to have an Amazon kind of a supply chain, but unfortunately we did not. We took the heat. We were a small team of just 14 people. We continued our journey to try and work persistently to give a good customer experience. Finally, today, I can tell you very proudly that we have cracked a lot of supply chain issues, we have cracked a lot of product-based issues, and we have achieved a decent position in terms of the ice popsicle industry. After Shark Tank, we today have covered more than 18,000 outlets. We export to more than 7 countries. And we have been the brand which last year sold 2.5 crore ice popsicles alone. That's the way resilience and persistence have actually fueled our business, fueled our startup, and the brand has phenomenally grown. It's always a combination of the great team that you bring in, and as a founder, one needs to understand that as a pilot of the project, of the pilot of the plane, you have no alternative but to look at the positive side of your defeats. You have no alternatives but to look at the positive sides of your defeats. Every day we have faced defeats, every day we have lost, but never was a day where we have backed out completely saying that this is not done, I am not taking it forward. The entire thing always focuses on why did you start it in the initial days? We started it because we wanted to bring fun into the consumer's life. And that particular thought process never allowed us to back off. There has always been a thought which is again very synonym to persistence and resilience. Aim for the skies and you will fall on the treetops. Aim for the skies and you will fall on the treetops. That is exactly we wanted to think about in terms of the way we were growing. We never wanted to conquer the skies, but we were excited that at least if we try to achieve for the skies, we will fall on the treetops. And that is how things moved very positively for us, because the entire attitude was supported by the thought of being resilient. Resilient to any kind of problems, resilient to any kind of issues which happens in our activity. Our team, which was merely 14 people, today is a team of 180 people. A story which started off with merely 400 stores in Hyderabad today serves 18,000 outlets, and we are exporting to countries like UAE, Australia, New Zealand, and many more. The entire activity of handling such a large team depends on the concept of resilience, because if you are backing out, the entire team will lose faith, and the entire, the entire agenda or the ambition of bringing fun into your life would actually get diluted. Obviously, in the process, one would always think about What is the achievement that we get after being so resilient, after sacrificing so much? The world will start understanding that your resilience, your sacrifices has always been a part of a journey which end of the day brings a lot of laurels to you, lot of success to you, and end of the day, it makes you a person who is very contented, happy about the way you have led your life. It is not the end of the journey for us. We are just beginning off. But we always understand that resilience is the superpower which is always invisible within yourself. Had it not been the resilience of Ratan Tata, has it not been the resilience of Steve Jobs, or has it not been the resilience of Abdul Kalam, I'm sure we would still be sitting in the old age right under a cave. But this has been the resilience. After thousands of failures, Thomas Edison was able to invent so many things. That is why I would say and strongly urge that all of us, whether we are an entrepreneur, a student, a homemaker, or just a person who is living a life great, needs to understand that resilience is the power, a superpower which cannot be ignored, and everyone needs to build the entire resilience arena around your family to make them understand no matter how much you fall, how many times you fall, the importance always lies in getting up, standing up strong, and fighting your odds off. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabra. Your words have truly inspired us to persevere through our challenges and dream big. We now turn towards our student speakers, starting our journey today with Anika Bhupatiraju. Anika brings forward her fresh perspectives through her unique topic of defiance through a pen, how censorship fuels the fire of storytelling.
So, picture this. I'm 8 years old on a school field trip to a museum. Now, museums and 8-year-olds are kind of a funny mix, and I think that's because we're like tiny, hypercritical art experts who really don't hold back. For us, the hierarchy was very clear. Gift shop first, then maybe the cafeteria, and then after that, who cares? Why look at portraits of guys in funny hats when you could be inspecting a glow-in-the-dark dinosaur pencil sharpener? No contest. But then came the field trip. You probably know the type. The important museum with a capital I, where everything, including the air, feels like it's judging your life choices, and your teachers have to shush you every 30 seconds. I was in my usual field trip mode, mentally planning my escape while doing just enough interested kid face to avoid trouble. And then we walked into the room. Now, this room was different. It kind of felt like it was auditioning for a role in a Christopher Nolan movie. You know, dim lights, dramatic spotlight, the whole we take ourselves very seriously vibe. And in the center, what were they showcasing? Pieces of paper. I couldn't even pretend to care when I first walked in. I was probably thinking about what I was going to have for lunch. But then what happened was that the guide started talking, and slowly things got interesting. He explained that these were all letters from the 19th and 20th centuries, which, mind you, still was not enough to interest me. But these weren't your average, "Dear Mom, camp is great" letters. These were messages written under the rule of oppressive regimes all around the world, smuggled out of prisons or passed between families like precious jewels, each one carrying whispers of freedom, each one risking everything just to exist. You know that feeling when something clicks in your mind and suddenly a particular entity looks completely different? That's what happened to me in that room. Now, I probably didn't know what censorship exactly meant at that point in time, but what I did know was that those letters were extremely real, extremely human, some of them kind of painful to read, and paradoxically, they became fascinating. And as time went on, I had another one of those moments. Censorship wasn't just this bad thing that kept people silent. It was something that had forced these writers to be braver, more creative, and somehow more human. But here's what blows my mind now, and this is what I want to talk about today. Censorship might be one of the best things that ever happened to literature. Now, before you start throwing things at me, let me explain. I love to read, and one interesting thing I've learned by looking into the historical context of some of the novels I've devoured is that for all its darkness, censorship has this incredible way of lighting fire, especially in writing and works of literature. It's like putting a lid on a pot of boiling water. The pressure doesn't stop the steam, it just forces it to find new ways to escape. And I have so many favorite examples of this. Take George Orwell. It's 1948, the world is still shaking from totalitarianism, and direct criticism could get you killed. So what does he do? He gives us talking pigs and a place called Room 101. He creates a world so powerful that even today, when someone says Big Brother, you don't necessarily think of family reunions. Orwell didn't just imagine this world. He lived parts of it, reporting from the Spanish Civil War, watching truth bend under the weight of propaganda. The very forces trying to silence him gave him his most powerful voice. And he isn't alone. Consider Ngugi wa Thiong'o, a Kenyan writer who dared to critique colonialism and post-independence corruption. When his play, I Will Marry When I Want, rattled the political establishment, he was thrown into prison. So what did he do? Did he stop writing? No. He drafted a novel on toilet paper. That novel, Devil on the Cross, written in Gikuyu instead of English, was a revolutionary act. Ngugi wasn't just speaking against censorship. He was reclaiming his cultural identity in the process. And isn't that the ultimate irony? Censorship often forces writers to be more subversive, more original, and ultimately, more impactful. That's why I find this so fascinating, because suppression has this incredible way of lighting a fire under storytellers and creatives. It creates this epic David and Goliath dynamic. You know, the storyteller versus the regime, the artist versus the system. And the artist often wins. Also, constraints breed innovation. Have you ever tried to bake a cake without sugar? You start getting creative real quick. Writing under censorship is exactly like that, except instead of sugar, you're missing freedom. And somehow, you end up creating something even richer, even more meaningful. Now, there are so many other visionaries like this throughout history who have exercised creativity in constraint. Authors like Voltaire, who wrote Candide under the strict eyes of the French monarchy, had to be smart about how they criticized the ruling class. Instead of direct attacks, they cloaked their critiques in satire and wit. And let's not forget how the Bible, that staple of Western culture, was once banned in its entirety in some regions for its controversial ideas about power, love, and morality. But the act of censorship didn't destroy the Bible, it fueled its mystique, igniting debates and discussions, and eventually revolutionizing religious and philosophical thought. Now, I can see some of you thinking, that's great, but I'm not Orwell or Ngugi. And you're right, most of us aren't. But here's the thing. Censorship isn't just about governments and prison cells anymore. It's that social media post that gets buried by the algorithm. It's that teacher who says your essay topic is too controversial. Sometimes it's even that tiny voice in the back of your head whispering, my story doesn't matter. The question isn't whether we'll face censorship. It's how we'll respond to it when we do. Will we let it silence us, or will we, like those letters, find a way to push through? I left the museum with a lot more than a stuffed toy that day. I left with this, a realization that when the world tries to silence you, it's not the end of your story. It's just the beginning. So that's my challenge to you. The next time you feel steamrollered, remember this. Our greatest stories often aren't born despite the constraints we face, but because of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anika, for your thoughtful insights. Next, we welcome Dia Dankani, someone who stands out for her confidence and lively presence. Known for her ability to find humor even in life's most challenging moments. Dia will be sharing her thoughts through her speech, Laughing at Chaos, the healing power of humor in adversity.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Laughing at chaos, the healing power of humor in adversity. We've all heard the famous proverb that laughter is the best medicine. But is it really? So, last year, August 2023, I quite literally broke my back. L4 and L5 slip disc injury. And my first thought, wow, even my spine knows how to procrastinate. It's breaking down 2 discs at a time instead of all 5 together. It was probably the most painful moment in my life. And trust me, I take IV, so I know pain. The thing is though, when I was faced with the most painful moment of my life, my mind directly went to jokes and making fun of the situation I was in. I was less than 17 and I already had back problems. Come on, there are better ways to breaking my back than bending the wrong way or working out a little too much. But see, that's the thing about my generation. You could be telling us an asteroid is hitting the planet, and our first thought would be making memes out of it. I'm not joking. This was September 2024 when an asteroid missed our planet. But don't listen to me. Look at the facts, look at the science. When we laugh, we release endorphins. That is your body's natural painkiller. Not just that, it reduces our overall cortisol levels. Hence, we're more calm, we're more relaxed, make better decisions. Let's look at some of the research, why don't we? Professor Robin Dunbar at Oxford University showed that laughter increases our pain tolerance by over 20 minutes because of the release of endorphins. This was backed up by Thomas Benz and his Swiss team, who showcased that laughing during comedy films also helped increase pain tolerance by 20 minutes. Now, 20 minutes is a lot of time, but let's look at some more personal experiences. Norman Cousins, in his book of Anatomy of an Illness, showcased how he battled through his disease. And even during that much pain, laughter was the one thing that helped him. Let's look at the psychology. Cognitive reframing is a technique used to shift your mindset so you're able to look at a situation, relationship, or even person from a slightly different perspective. And sometimes isn't that all we need? A different perspective. I mean, when I first broke my back, I was upset. People looked at me like I was fragile, and it wasn't the best feeling in the world. But as soon as I started making self-deprecating jokes about how I needed a senior citizenship discount, or about how I should be the only one allowed to sit on a metro station, it became a little bit easier. It created a bridge between my friends, and created a bridge between the people and I. It reminded all of us that at the end of the day, regardless of the pain, we're all human, and I'm very funny. See, there are 2 main ways in which we can cope with problems, and 2 main ways in which we can look at humor, right? First, positive reinterpretation. Now, what does this mean? Taking a bad situation and reframing it in a positive light, or rather reframing it in a light-hearted way. This is also linked to healthy, positive human traits. The other way is de-emphasizing. De-emphasizing is when you downplay the seriousness of the situation. And that is exactly what we're not trying to do. Think about it this way. If I had said, wow, this is the end of it, I can never walk again, would it be funny? Maybe. But also, is that downplaying the seriousness of the situation? Definitely. Rather, making jokes about how I should be allowed to use a wheelchair was a little bit easier and also light-hearted. It didn't downplay the seriousness of the situation. It didn't hurt me, nor did it hurt the people around me or someone that was facing the same pain. Rather, it helped us take a moment and helped us realize that if we look at this from a different perspective, maybe it's not that bad. Okay, now leave you and I, leave the science, let's look at the world for a second. During World War II, the Brits coined the extremely famous phrase, keep calm and carry on. But what actually helped them carry on was not the fact that the world might be ending, but rather mocking their political decisions, mocking the government around them, making cartoons. It helped us realize that regardless of how horrible the situation is across the planet, there is still laughter, there is still joy. Pain can be eased. Who can forget the COVID-19 pandemic, right? How many of us remember the toilet paper roll shortages? The songs being made out of the toilet paper roll shortages. I mean, sitting across the planet, people were making jokes about how their houses were exotic vacation spots. I mean, in India, I was in the Bahamas, so, you know. But regardless of all of that, what it helped with was the isolation wasn't the end of the world. Sitting in my room alone, I could have related to someone across the planet simply because they have the same sense of humor as I do. But looking at more serious situations, whether it's Afghanistan, Ukraine, Russia, or Syria, these countries are facing humanitarian crisis. There's very little we can do sitting here. We're privileged to be talking about these issues. To spread joy. Children, look at the joy. Even in the middle of a humanitarian crisis, there is joy, there is a future, there is hope. And isn't that what we all really need at the end of the day? To remind us that we're resilient, we're strong, there's hope, there's the future. I mean, when the world is spinning out of control, or rather spining out of control, because I broke my spine. Okay, they told me to remove that one, but trust me. When the world is spinning out of control, at the end of the day, what we, you and I need is to remember that there is resilience, there is hope, and there is a future. So when I'm laughing around about my back, what I'm actually telling you is that give it a year, I'll be walking straight again. What I'm trying to tell you is that sometimes sadness, pain, and anger is all we can feel, and that is okay. No one is diminishing that, no one is telling you the way you feel is wrong or it's invalid. Rather, sometimes it's okay if those are the only things you can feel. But when you can, tell that bad joke. I certainly did. Share that awkward story. I know I did. And let yourself laugh. Because you might be broken, or you might not be broken, but at the end of the day, what matters is you're standing strong. I mean, isn't that what humor teaches us? It doesn't solve the problems, but for someone like me, I might be bent, definitely not broken yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Dia, for such an insightful and engaging session. We now have Anaga Balakrishnan, known for her kind personality and passion for wildlife. Anaga's ideas inspire us to see the world with more empathy and awareness. Today, Anaga will be sharing her perspective through her talk titled The Elephant in the Room.
Okay, so before I begin, I would like all of you to close your eyes for just a moment. Picture an elephant, majestic, powerful, with a towering frame and gentle eyes. Now, I want you to imagine that very elephant, its massive feet bound, standing still in a dusty corner, frail and broken. The image that you see in front of you here today is not just of a creature in captivity. It's a symbol of suffering, and it's a powerful being whose spirit has been broken over and over and over again. The elephant in the room is a phrase I'm sure all of us are familiar with. Well, in this case, the elephant is the room. It refers to the problem that we've all been aware of but been avoiding. And the elephant symbolizes the exploitation and suffering of these creatures in captivity. The chains that bind them and the horrors that they endure is the truth that's right in front of us. But it's also the elephant that all of us are willing to ignore. Facing this truth, however, gives us the power to change it. I was able to witness the reality of these captive elephants earlier when I had visited a temple. And I noticed that their scars were much deeper than just physical. They were emotional and psychological. And this experience made me ask a profound question. How did we let this happen? And more importantly, how can we change it? My name is Anagha, and I'm here today to take you on a journey through the lives of two elephants, Mohan and Susie. I also plan to acknowledge the efforts of all the people who have been helpful in giving these elephants like them a second chance. And through these stories, I plan to talk about lessons of empathy, hope, and responsibility. Elephants in India have been exploited for centuries, and been forced to serve human interests in different ways, whether it be giving rides to tourists, performing in circuses, or being paraded in religious ceremonies. And through their stories, I plan to highlight the silver lining, the hope that's there for their future. Susie, the elephant you see on your screen right now, is an elephant who's spent over 60 years in a circus. She performed tricks for large audiences in the day and was chained to the same spot every single night. To spectators who saw her, she appeared majestic and obedient, following every single command. But her life behind the scenes was not as glamorous as it seemed. She was chained for long hours on hard concrete floors, and it took an immense physical toll on her body. It led to deteriorating joints, skin sores, and severe malnutrition. It also led to an emotional toll because of her constant abuse, lack of companionship, and the complete suppression of her natural instincts. By the time this elephant was rescued, she was completely blind and had lost use of her molar teeth. After arriving at the rescue center, however, she was able to start a new chapter. She became the sanctuary's oldest elephant at 65 years old, and immediately formed close relationships with other rescued elephants. They walked together, played together, and had specially crafted meals together. And her caregivers at the rescue center lovingly called her Paro, and crafted special meals for her called Susie smoothies to help with her lack of molar teeth. Her story is one that highlights the potential for kindness to overcome exploitation and to overcome situations of adversity. Another elephant whose story I'm going to be talking about is Mohan. Mohan's story is one that's even more harrowing than Susie's, because for over 50 years, he spent over 50 years in chains, used for hard labor, and he was deprived of basic care for his entire life. His days were filled with hauling heavy loads, and his nights were spent in isolation, chained to the same spot. When his rescuers found him, he was emaciated, weak, and covered in wounds. And his eyes, which were once full of intelligence and life, were only full of pain and despair. The fight to free Mohan was one that was met with a lot of challenges from his captors, and it involved lengthy legal battles, but at the end of the day, his rescuers never gave up on him. After his rescue, he didn't know how to be an elephant. He didn't know how to walk freely, how to play, or how to even eat properly. Basic things that he was deprived of when he was in captivity. And the sanctuary soon became a place of healing for him. He began to rediscover those simple joys, such as walking or playing in the water and scratching against the trees. And for the first time in his life, he was a free elephant. His remarkable transformation from a broken being to an elephant, rediscovering his identity and joy, is one that reminds us of the power of resilience. His story also exemplifies the strength of life when it's given the chance to heal. Elephants are beings that are highly emotional and form deep bonds with one another. They grieve their losses, and they remember each and every experience of their life vividly. Captivity, however, is something that robs them of their dignity. It robs them of their freedom and their ability to experience being an elephant. In 2023, I had the opportunity to explore these very themes at Azim Premji University, where I was able to conduct a photographic research project where I curated a set of 30 photographs divided into 3 different phases: Born Free, Colossal Entrapment, and Trumpet of Hope. When I was taking the pictures for Born Free in Kaziranga with wild elephants, I noticed that the elephants were free. They were living their lives and they were happy and at peace. At colossal entrapment, I realized the pain that I saw was immense, and I realized that even though people were aware of the fact that they were hurting these elephants, they continued to do so. In Trumpet of Hope, I realized that even though they go through so much, there's still hope for the future. There's still ways that we can help them, and there's still ways that we can make it better for them. This experience also taught me the power of visual storytelling, and it completely transformed my understanding of their experiences. I also conducted workshops for over 2,000 students at this university, and I realized that just conversation isn't enough. Action is equally important, if not more important. And now the question comes, what can you all do to help? What can we do to help? Firstly, be informed. Ethical choices matter, and no matter how small they are. You can start simply by avoiding supporting attractions that exploit elephants, such as rides, circuses, and shows, and instead support attractions that prioritize their well-being. Secondly, you can support impactful organizations such as Wildlife SOS that work tirelessly to give these elephants a new chance at their life. Thirdly, you can advocate for stronger protection. Spread awareness in your community and push for laws that safeguard elephants both in the wild and in captivity. Now, I want to ask you to imagine a world where elephants like Mohan and Susie roam freely, where their trumpeting signals triumph, not pain. This future is something that is well within our reach, but only if we act now. Mohan's rediscovery of freedom and Susie's resilience are just two examples of the transformative power of care and compassion. Their stories challenge us to consider, are we going to ignore their suffering, or are we going to take the steps to create a better world for them? The choice begins with the decisions we take now. To conclude this, I want to ask you one question. If you were to tell the story of your role in the world, what kind of an ending would you write? Together, let's ensure it's one where we stand as protectors rather than their captors. Thank you.
Thank you, Anaga, for sharing your insights. Our next speaker is another esteemed member of our faculty and our vice principal, Ms. Priyanka Bakshi. Her wisdom and guidance have been invaluable to so many of us. Please welcome Ms. Priyanka as she speaks about the life lessons that she's learned from Little Voices.
Forever anxious, thinking about mistakes, not accepting mistakes, always thinking what people will say, being rigid, keeping to myself, being aloof. All these traits made me appear a very rigid, a very ruthless person. I was not very kind to myself. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you all. Today, I'm here to remind each one of you a very important thing of the profound lessons that life teaches us, often through very, very unexpected people and moments. Let me take you back to one of my overseas assignments years back. And in my everyday duty, I was stationed at the playground. On the playground, we were supposed to, this primary students playing around, secondary students playing around, the primary students chit-chatting, laughing to glory, often ignoring their lunch boxes, and imagine the untouched lunch boxes going back home. And The other side was the secondary students scheming in groups, how to miss classes, how to sneak out of the PE lesson, how not to attend lessons or go into the sick bay, and just their usual childhood, just their usual secondary and primary student life. For me, at my duty spot on the playground, this scene was pure joy, because once upon a time, I was that age. Now, amidst all this, one fine day, I see this boy called Lucius. This boy comes on the play field, and he's round and round and round in the circle. I got very curious, and I went up to check on him, and I asked, "Hi, young man, are you looking for something?" Without holding his breath, "Hi, my name is Lucius, and I'm in year 3. "Hi, Lucius, and I am trying to solve my math problem." A person who dreaded math my whole life, I just couldn't fathom this approach. That pacing round and round in circles on the play field, he's trying to answer math problems. I was like, okay. And without missing a beat, he tells me, "But if you promise to come tomorrow, I'll show you how." This innocent challenge left me with no option but to agree. The next day, I went. Again, same spot. "Hello, young man. How are you today?" "You are late." To my face. Apologizing. I heard him. He showed me his paper with a pen. This is what I was trying to do yesterday. On a very neat and clean paper, he solved his mathematical sums. And he told me, it's okay to be late as long as you have a reason. Just like it's okay to go round and round in circles if it helps you think. Yesterday, I was going around in circles because I was thinking, drawing patterns, how to solve my math sums. And see, this is how I do it. I did it. See? And he laughed to glory, ladies and gentlemen. On his own, year 3, Lucius, enjoying himself for the small bit of the math problem he solved on his own. And he taught me that piece of math, the person who fears, who struggles with math even today. Lucius taught me that no matter how strange your methods may seem to others, but if you believe in them, they are valid. He reminded me that it's okay to be late or make mistakes as long as we have a reason for it and the humility to acknowledge it. Fast forward, few months forward, I was coming down the stairs. I do not enjoy the activity of going up and down the stairs for all the obvious reasons, but I was coming down the second floor, and this young primary boy from primary school was coming upstairs, gasping and panting for breath. "Miss, I found this in the music room. I'm going to give it to my brother. He was looking for it at home in the evening yesterday." I didn't know this boy. I was going down the steps. This brother was coming up the stairs. And I was like, wow. I smiled back. And I said, "Wow, your brother must thank you for this. You are so kind." "No, miss. He asked me to shut up and not talk to him for a week." Such innocence, such honesty. Before I could say anything, "But it's okay, miss. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to go and give it back to him." And off he went into the class. Later I came to know that he was my student's younger brother. This was Jason. Jason taught me that doing the right thing isn't about receiving appreciation. People might not always recognize what you do. They might not even like the way you do things. But that should not stop you from being a conscientious person. Good deeds have a way to come back to you, often when you least expect them. These two primary year 3 students, we were unknown to each other. They taught me great life lessons. They offered me invaluable lessons. Lucius taught me to embrace my unique path. I was very rigid. I was very hard on myself, always. It was very difficult for me to accept mistakes, that I can make mistakes or my team can make mistakes. I calmed down. He taught me that embrace your unique path. Be patient, be humble with yourself, be kind to yourself. Jason reminded me of the importance of integrity and kindness. Be kind to yourself. These instances, however small they may look, but they changed me. They changed me, and I would also not go very close to the primary students. But these two boys changed me. I started accepting that I'm a human being, I can make mistakes. That should not stop me from experimenting, trying new things. That should not stop me from doing good, doing greater good. And that's when I started moving forward. You will see this. I started small. I started coming out of my shell. I started rejecting the rejections I created for myself. I started enrolling for small events, small workshops. Believe me not, whatever I did, everything under the sun, from candle making, from pottery, and the best was that I enrolled for public speaking and started with marathons, 2 kilometers, then 5 kilometers, then 10 kilometers, but I was consistent. Thank you to these boys. I learned from them and moved forward. There was a shift in my mindset. And I started looking within. I started thinking that I must grow. If I grow, I will glow, and this glow will be passed on to my team. And that's when I allowed myself to be patient with myself, be compassionate with myself, and of course, that rubbed on to the others, embracing growth with resilience and positivity. Looking back, I realized that these moments were the silver linings in my journey. What seemed like ordinary encounters became extraordinary life lessons. Lucius and Jason helped me overcome the brighter side, uncover the bright side of my struggles, the silver lining of self-acceptance, of being patient, and the quiet power of doing good even when there is no recognition or even without expecting anything in return. Now, how did I do that? I started, as I just mentioned, I started rejecting my own rejections. I decided to come out of my own shell. I decided to go to places I rejected that I will never be able to go. I will never be able to reach these places. So these are live active volcanoes, ladies and gentlemen. I climbed, I can't believe it today. Even today, I can't believe I did it. And these were my solo trips. Traveling allowed me to look at the world from a different perspective altogether, thanks to Lucius and Jason. And going forward, and as I reflect on my interactions, I realize that, think of it, how often we overlook the wisdom these students, these young children carry. They see the world with so much clarity and sincerity, which we as adults often forget. They remind us that life isn't about perfection, but it is about persistence and purpose and staying true to your values. This, as I mentioned earlier, I had enrolled for public speaking. It took me almost 3 years to achieve the highest award in public speaking, which is the Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And, it took me time, but I stuck to the plan, thanks to Jason and Lucius. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to observe and listen a little more, especially to the young voices around you. You never know, you might just get your greatest lesson in the smallest moment, and that might become a silver lining in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Priyanka, for such a thought-provoking talk. Up next, we have Sudiksha Reddy, a student speaker filled with enthusiasm and fascination. Her ideas surrounding the genetics of optimism and pessimism promise to inspire and ignite curiosity. Let's give her a big round of applause.
sees difficulty in every opportunity, while the optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. Hi, I'm Sadiksha, and today I say, let's get into something that's been both a struggle and a revelation in my life. I grew up in a family where optimism was practically a religion. My mom would often remind me of this Latin saying, dum spiro spero, which means, while I breathe, I hope. It was her way of showing me that life always has a silver lining, and it was up to me to look for it. For the longest time, I convinced myself that I was an optimist. Whenever prompted, I would say, the glass is half full. But let me take you back to 5th grade when that belief began to falter and the glass felt half empty. Let's set the scene. Bright pink room, bright lights, and a Barbie doll by my side. I found myself frantically typing into the search bar. How do I make myself look prettier? And then I moved on to 8th grade in the same room where I'd scroll through reels and see girls who seemed perfect, lived perfect lives, and did all these perfect things that I couldn't relate to. Scrolling through images of other girls, each one a masterpiece of flawlessness, left me feeling like an unfinished rough sketch in a world that screams perfection. The double tap culture made me question if I'd ever be worthy in front of those high standards. Those who knew me back then know that I used to wear a mask long after the pandemic had ended. This was because hiding felt easier than being judged. In 10th grade, I realized my so-called optimism was a facade. A bad grade in math, my most dreaded subject, didn't motivate me to improve. Instead, it sent me into a spiral of self-doubt. I wasn't just questioning my grades, but my worth, whether I was smart enough, capable enough, or even pretty enough. I realized the glass half full had become the glass half empty, and it finally became the glass that broke. Optimism is defined as the belief in a brighter future, even in tough times. While often associated with happiness, I believe that those two are not synonyms. Being optimistic doesn't mean feeling happy all the time. It's about maintaining hope and resilience, even when you're angry or upset. It's the quiet conviction that despite the struggle, things will improve. On the other hand, pessimism is its counterpart. Pessimism is the tendency to expect the worst possible outcome. It's the belief that when things can go wrong, it inevitably will. These contrasting mindsets dictate our ability to find the silver lining. A psychological study was conducted where participants were asked to evaluate their success in a given activity. Optimists thought of themselves as doing better than what they actually did, while pessimists were more accurate. However, this accuracy often caused pessimists to give up, while optimists, because of their overestimation and having that illusion, believed that they'd done well and thought, oh, I'll do even better next time, which motivated them to try again. This persistence enabled optimists to achieve success at rates 4 to 5 times higher than pessimists. So we should all want to be optimists, right? But the fact is, we're not. Is that because we choose not to be? Why do some of us naturally see the silver lining, while others fixate on the negatives? Is it an inherent trait? Recent research points to genetics, a gene called COMT, short for catechol O-methyltransferase. This gene ties into the warrior-warrior hypothesis, which poses that people have different responses, either optimistic or pessimistic, based on the variant of the COMT gene they possess. The gene comes in 2 forms, VAL and MET. People with the VAL variant are known as warriors because they process dopamine more quickly, which makes them more resilient under stress, making them more optimistic. On the other hand, People with the MET variant are called warriors because they process dopamine more slowly, which makes them stress for longer, ruminate on problems, making them more pessimistic in nature. People with one of each variant fall somewhere in between, balancing both tendencies. This genetic difference explains why some of us naturally lean towards optimism, while others like me are more pessimistic. So you might be wondering, if I have the warrior gene, am I doomed to pessimism? The answer is a resounding no. Genetics account only for a small portion of what makes someone an optimist or a pessimist. The main and dominant factor of optimism is your individual choice. Research confirms that you get to choose your response in any situation. Martin Seligman, a psychologist, introduced the concept of learned optimism. His research revealed that optimism is not just a natural trait, but also a skill. It's something you can practice and develop, just like learning a new language or mastering a sport. You get to choose whether you are an optimist or a pessimist. Every day, I work towards becoming a better version of myself because I now choose to face challenges with hope and resilience. Because I was insecure of my looks, I found opportunities to learn skills like makeup and experiment with fashion, while yoga helped me manage my stress. So the best part is that I don't wear a mask anymore. The person you see today only compares herself to who she was yesterday. Granted, I'm still really, really bad at math, but instead of dwelling upon a bad grade, I now roll up my sleeves and start studying. In the end, the glass isn't half full or half empty. It's refillable, and you have the power to decide what you'll fill it with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadiksha, for sharing your perspective with us. Now we have Neha Takkal, the founder of Ashram. Neha will be speaking on how building this organization has opened her eyes to the many silver linings around us. Please welcome Neha to the stage to present Illuminating Hope in the Shadows of Society.
The silver lining is a powerful idea. It reminds us that even in the darkest clouds, there is a glimmer of hope, an opportunity for growth and transformation. It's not just about optimism, it's about seeing possibilities where others see obstacles and using those possibilities to move forward. Hi, I'm Neha Takkal, and today I would like to talk about the silver linings that often go unnoticed, not in our own lives, but in the lives of others. Specifically, the lives of millions of children growing up in challenging circumstances right in front of us, yet often invisible to society. Almost 3 years ago, I co-founded Ashram, an organization that works to foster learning in government schools by incorporating soft skills into education. It was my mother who encouraged me to take up this project, and I am so happy that while I walked the talk, I understood the true meaning of silver linings. I still remember the first time I visited one of these schools. I was trying to talk about the importance of communication in my half English, half Telugu language, thinking I was doing a pretty good job. Before I left, a girl pulled me aside and said, "Sister, you did okay today, but I really can't understand your Telugu. I suggest you just stick to English." She then added, I don't mean to make you feel bad, it's just that I really want to learn. That moment wasn't just humbling for me, it was eye-opening. I saw how determined these children were to overcome their circumstances, and how, despite the challenges they faced, they found hope and purpose in every single day. Their attitude made me reflect on my own actions. For the past 16 years of my life, not being able to have dessert after dinner, or not being able to match my socks to my hair clips were things that made me turn my entire house upside down, kind of like this. But seeing these children and seeing their attitude made me reflect on my own actions. Their lives are a true testament to the power of finding light, even in the darkest moments. They taught me that life is about so much more. Seeing these children finding joy in every grain of rice they had, and finding joy in wearing their passed down school uniforms made me realize that I lived a life where the silver lining was not found. Okay, so far you've heard a lot of I and I and I, but now let me share with you a different story, the story of Kundana. Coming from a modest background herself, Kundana faced an unimaginable challenge when a devastating cyclone and flood hit her city. Her entire home was submerged, and with it, all of her belongings. Now, take a moment and think about what you would have done in this situation. In moments like these, it's easy to see only darkness. Or, if you're like me, to feel as if the entire world is ending. Instead of succumbing to despair, Kundana, however, saw an opportunity to turn her setback into something meaningful. She poured her entire energy into giving back, honing her skills, and making a difference in the lives of others. Today, Kundana is one of Ashram's most dedicated and impactful volunteers. Ladies and gentlemen, Kundana didn't just try to find a silver lining in her own life. She became a silver lining in the lives of many, many others. This is when I realized that day when that little girl at the government school came to tell me that my Telugu was, well, terrible, she told me this because I was her silver lining. A small effort from my side created an impact so large that I could have never conceived it unless I saw it from her perspective. My words gave her the power to hope and to dream. This realization created a buzz in me, a buzz to traverse the sky and become every dark cloud silver lining. When I asked these students what success and happiness meant to them, their answers deeply moved me. One said it was being able to call a place home. Another said it was ensuring their mom didn't have to go to work while sick. These are the children that society often overlooks, yet they come to school every day with dreams of becoming doctors, IAS officers, and soldiers. Their lives are a true testament to the power of finding light, even in the darkest moments. They taught me that the silver lining isn't just a pretty thing in the sky. It's a beautiful way of showing us that there is always a light in darkness. We just have to look for it. This experience taught me an important lesson. While we often get caught up in our own struggles, there's an entire world of untapped resilience and potential around us. And here's what's truly inspiring. When we take the time to notice, we realize that we have the chance to be a part of someone else's story of hope and possibility. So, here we are now. I know that my dream is to become every dark cloud's silver lining. But unfortunately, the sky is very vast. So now the real question is, what can we do together with this understanding? How can we use the opportunities we've been given to make that glimmer of light brighter for someone else? Well, we can support access to education by volunteering, by donating resources, or simply by advocating for better school facilities. Small actions that create lasting change. Systemic change is equally crucial. By pushing for policies that uplift underserved communities, we can ensure that no one is left behind. And most importantly, connecting with these students personally can be transformative. Spend just one day at a government school or an orphanage, and you will witness their resilience, their curiosity, and their incredible ability to find hope in adversity, offering a fresh perspective on the power of determination. So today, while you're leaving this room, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect, not just on your own challenges, but on how you can bring light to someone else's life. It may not be a grand gesture. Even a small act of kindness can create a ripple of hope. Because when we choose to lift others up, we aren't just creating a world where we're helping them move forward. We are creating a world where silver linings are not just hopes, but a reality for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Neha, for your inspiring story. Next, we have Srinidhi Sriram, a speaker who believes there is no such thing such as a bad or a good situation. Everything is just a situation. Let's put our hands together to welcome Srinidhi to the stage to share her lockdown lessons.
Hello everyone, Happy New Year! 2025 means bye-bye humans, hello AI, and climate change is going to kickstart tours to the tropical and But 2025 also means that the infamous COVID-19 pandemic is now half a decade ago. Shocking, right? Time is flying fast, and I don't think I'm the only one who feels like we're still stuck in 2020, right before the world was turned upside down by the COVID-19 lockdown. It was a time of raw emotions, uncertainty, and death. However, as Leonard Cohen once said, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. My name is Srinidhi, and I'm here to shine that light your way and share with you 3 life lessons I took away from the COVID-19 pandemic. My first lesson is on situations. We don't get positives or negatives. We just get situations. The meaning we apply to them is up to us. Let me tell you a story. The pandemic was a situation that none of us expected, and one most would call negative. But looking back, I now mostly just remember the close bonds and quality time I could spend with my family. Whether it was dragging out board games from the deepest corners of our house, or enjoying nature's beauty on our terribly long walks. Even pretending to enjoy my parents' cooking experiments that went horribly wrong. My dad's khichdi face was certainly something. It were those quiet moments that gave me the perseverance to keep going through a difficult situation. They gave me the strength and the support to realize that maybe the situation may not be all that bad. My family, like many others, did lose close ones during the time, and we did cry and grieve. At that time, those feelings of loss, grief, and frustration overshadowed these positive experiences with my family. In hindsight, a change in my perspective helps me see the other side to the situation. We couldn't change it, and we certainly didn't like it. But I changed what I could from my end, and now I can see those special memories as the diamonds in the rough. This brings me to my second takeaway. Any situation, even in the midst of adversity, can be turned into an opportunity for the better. My aunt is a great role model for this. After the passing of my uncle in 2021 due to COVID, she processed the grief, but then picked herself back up. She used the lockdown as an opportunity to turn her passion for clothing design into her own tailoring business. She gathered all the necessary equipment, developed her skills, began advertising, and gathered clients. She threw herself into her business, making it the successful company it is today. She could have let the pandemic and her loss weigh her down, but she turned it around for herself and created this golden opportunity, the rewards of which she's reaping today. So we see that even the most dire circumstances can be turned into an opportunity. And finally, my third and most important lesson, kindness. We saw the importance of kindness during the pandemic. It was a time where people found the need to come together and support each other in the face of this lockdown. Many families, including my own, created grocery distribution systems for the senior members of our neighborhood to help reduce their risk of exposure to the virus. A number of online support groups came up to help share and overcome lockdown challenges, isolation, losses, toilet paper. Means of connection and communication, even if remotely, created safe spaces of support and care. These communities even rose to the occasion in the most dire situations, whether it was finding an oxygen tank to help save the life of a friend, or a vacant hospital bed to admit an infected family member. Ready at a moment's notice, these communities showed us the true meaning of humanity. Their significance was especially seen in moments with the absence of such care and compassion. Take, for instance, the racist discrimination against East Asian people. No one knew the cause of the virus, and people wanted something to blame. So, a selective group of our society was targeted and blamed for the cause of the virus. There was discrimination seen against East Asian people all across the globe, in America, Australia, even here in India. In the name of blaming them, the pandemic showed us how impactful and important kindness is for our society. As we found kindness coming from the most unexpected places, we learned that more than anything, being human is the most important. And the pandemic showed us that kindness is contagious. The real epidemic we need is one of kindness. I saw that no one is alone and no one will feel alone if we all learn to pass kindness onto the person next to us. And lastly, it's time to stop social distancing ourselves and not only learn to share kindness, but also learn to accept it when offered. I want to conclude by saying the pandemic wasn't something we just survived. It's something we're still learning from today. And maybe years from now, when we look back, the biggest takeaway might not be what we lost, but what we gained. I want you all to close your eyes for a moment and reflect on those 2 years. Go on, close your eyes. And now think of the problems you face today. Those 2 years weren't just lost binge watching Netflix, but taught us valuable lessons that we can carry with us for the rest of our lives. You can open your eyes now. The world is changing fast, and that change may not always be positive. We need to learn to accept every experience just as a situation and control the one thing we can, our perspective. And in a world filled with competition and adversity, we can't always wait for opportunities to fall on our laps. We must use our perspective to take every situation as an opportunity to make our lives just a little better, to be open, to be curious, and to explore the possibilities. And lastly, and most importantly, the timeless lesson. The lesson that brings us all together despite the circumstances of life. To see the kindness in every situation. Because, as John Milton once said, every cloud has a silver lining. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinidhi, for your wonderful talk. It is now my pleasure to introduce our second faculty speaker, Ms. Sunanda Lakshman. Ms. Sunanda is a respected and inspiring role model to many. She is sure to leave a lasting impact with her wonderful speech. Please join me in welcoming her as she speaks about her life experiences in her speech, A Journey of Personal Transformation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm here to talk about a personal transformation, a journey that took me on highs and lows, on roads less traveled, and seminal tragedies in life. It also gave me glorious highs and lows. I'm going to talk about a journey that transformed me from an ugly duckling to a very beautiful me. This is me, the sullen, sulky me that could not comprehend why I was the dark horse. My sisters and my cousins were whiter than white, while I was dark. And then this is where my mom and my grandmother told me a very funny story. They said when someone takes saffron, they become white. And then the question was, why did it not work with me? Then my mom says, oh, by mistake, I ate a lot. And this is the result. Now, while it may have been said in a very jocular manner, as a very young girl, it left a deep impact on me. It made me wonder why I was different. It made me want to know why I was the way I am. And this is where I learned history. This is where I developed a passion for reading, a passion for history, a subject that is close to my heart. And this is where I learned that it does not matter whether you are black, brown, blue, green, white, it didn't matter. It mattered all because you were an individual. You were unique, you were bold, you were beautiful. The tears, the laughter, the highs and the lows were all that made you. However, I wouldn't say it was all fun and roses. The troubled teens made me question what, where, why, how, when. And this is where the miracle of sport came into my life, and I was a hockey player. I loved the sport. Now, it may sound childish, but I want to add that this sport gave me some kind of strength. I believed I was superwoman. I believed that the hockey stick was what I could use to throw my weight around. There would be passes sometimes, and it would hit someone, and I would say, sorry, I didn't see it. However, I knew I had actually done it. And then karma comes back, and it comes back badly. There was a time when my own teammate decided that she had to aim at the net, but aimed at my nose. All I remember was seeing stars, Tom and Jerry twittering around me, and my coach screaming, Sugandha, Sugandha. And when I woke up, I was like, who's Sugandha in this place? He said in Tamil, Nida Sugandha, it's you. I said, my name is not Sunanda, but Sugandha, Sunanda. And he said, yeah, Sugandha. And again, for a moment, I had to ask myself, is Sunanda the me or Sugandha the me? However, I learned many wonderful lessons. I navigated stormy relationships, whether it was my marriage, whether it was my family, whether it was my professional career. I battled many relationships. However, through all of these, the tears, the grit, the determination told me only one thing. I was more than Sunanda. I was a very unique me. I was a very intelligent me. I was a very beautiful me. I was a me that had to be accepted by me. The acceptance came from me. And I had to learn it the hard way that I was who I am, and it did not matter what others thought of me. I discovered a purpose in life. I loved traveling. I journeyed to places where I found peace and calm. I understood myself. I laughed at myself. There was a time when I was a rather healthy person, and I would tell people, you can roll me down and I would reach faster than you can walk. I learned to make fun of myself. There were days when I cried about it. But then I looked back and I said, this doesn't make me me. There is more to me than me. A life lesson where I navigated the journey of travel, a journey of healing, a journey of calm, and a journey where I loved myself. I loved the resilience in myself. I loved the determination in myself. I loved me. I couldn't dance. I had 2 left feet. Yet, I said I will dance. Today, anytime there's music, I am not even looking to see where I am. I am doing the 3 mar or 4 mar or whatever mar it is called. But I'm there. And I'm learning to love every bit of myself. I'd like to conclude by saying, Ke sara sara. Whatever will be, will be. It is up to us to navigate the journey of life. Look at the silver lining. Love yourself, be true to yourself, and the journey is going to be magical. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring words. Next, we have Avani Veeramaneni, one of the youngest female Formula 4 racers, who is here to speak about the key role that confidence and resilience play in Formula 4 and in our everyday lives. Let's give her a warm welcome.
As I sat in the wreckage, waiting for the marshals to pull me out, all I could think about is, how did I get myself here once again? The physical impact is not what hurt me the most. I was coming to terms with losing the moment that I've worked so hard for. I was so close, yet so far. Hi, my name is Avani Veeramaneni, and I'm one of the youngest Formula 4 drivers in India. And before I begin, I'd like to say that motorsports is a sport that's mostly driven by men, often controversial, but I believe that any person can participate in such a vigorous sport. For me, confidence was one of my biggest allies in the sport. Confidence was one of my biggest allies in the sport, where I didn't know if I could make it. There were moments in my head where I was like, how can I do this again? How can I make myself better? And can I make myself better? And am I able to do that efficiently? Now, confidence is a really funny thing. Confidence is something that you didn't have in yourself, but when you go out and perform, you perform your very, very best. I was put in a situation where I was an underdog in a male-dominant sport. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was one girl within like about 20 to 30 men, and I didn't know if I could make it out. I thought that, okay, since I'm the youngest girl, can I do it? Can I do it as good as them? But when I thought to myself, it's all about believing in yourself, believing in your natural instincts, and believing that you can do it. And one thing that I always remember that my coach once told me is that life and racing has a way of telling us lessons in the most unexpected ways. This can be shown through my crash last year in 2024. In 2024, I participated in the JK Tire National Championship, and I was one of the youngest girls there. I was so excited for this race. I knew I was prepared. I had the relentless determination, sacrifice, and the hard work. I knew I could make it, and I knew I was doing a great job. Before I went onto the track, as the lights went off, I was nailing it. Every apex, every line, every entry, every exit. I remember my throttle input. Everything was so precise, and I knew I was going to make it. One of my goals was to get a podium finish, and this was the race where that would happen. I was nailing it every single lap, and I could feel myself. I could feel my adrenaline rushing through, and I knew I was doing a great job. But then, within just a split second, everything changed. A collision sent my car spinning off the track, my momentum going completely off balance. I didn't know what to think in the moment. I was thinking, oh my God, my racing career is over. I don't know how I'm gonna fix this. Did anyone see that crash happen? Was it that bad? The physical impact was so rigorous, but the mental one hurt even more. I lost my confidence. I didn't believe in myself, and I thought I wasn't gonna race again. But that's when resilience came into the picture. Now, one of the most often overlooked aspects of racing is resilience. It's the connection between the car and the driver. What I've learned is that the more you speak to your car, the more you feel a sense of interconnectedness with your car, that's when you perform your level best. I have a few pre-race rituals. I stand in front of my car and I talk to it. Yes, it's very absurd, and people do laugh because it seems so weird. But I believe that's one of the most important things to making it in a race. I talk to my throttle. I talk to my brake. I talk to my clutch. I talk to my steering wheel. I tell it, what are we going to do at this moment to excel in this lap? I'd say, these are the lap times that we are going to be making. This is the throttle input that we are going to be pushing till, and we are going to be pushing towards the most. I talk to my coach, my mechanics, and ask them, what am I doing wrong in this lap to improve better for the next? For this race, about the crash, I was so prepared. I knew that I could do it because I put in sacrifice, I put in hard work for months. And I went through a lot of hesitation and overthinking, but at the end, with the people that are closest with me, I knew I would make it out well. And what I always loved about racing is how beautiful it is. You are sitting in a car with many people watching you, and you're going lap by lap. And it's just such a beautiful story to tell. People are watching you, the pressure is so high, but you know you have to perform your very level best. The silver lining in this experience for my car was transforming my car from just a machine, because I often see that many people are like, you're just sitting in a car roaming around in circles. What are you doing? That's not really taking much. But it requires grit, sacrifice, and relentless determination to excel at what you're doing. And for me, it took a lot of years because I had no prior experience in racing. I did not do go-karting, and I did not practice driving at all. I went into this with an open mind, and I truly believed in myself. And that's the difference I made in this sport. Now, let me ask you a question. How many times have you doubted yourself, hesitated, or even felt like you were not good enough? You woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and you thought, I don't think I'm going to make it today. I don't think I'm going to do this. Maybe it was a career setback. Maybe it was a tough exam, or maybe it was a personal loss. But today, you've made it. You are sitting in front of me today knowing that you were confident, knowing that you were resilient, and knowing that you've made it through every single moment. And the silver lining in this is always there. Now, I'd like to conclude by saying, confidence will get you on track. Resilience will keep you racing. But the silver lining is always there. Sometimes it's in the lessons you learn. Sometimes it's in the strength that you didn't know you had. And sometimes it's in the courage to just get up and try again despite the fear of failing. So now, I'd like you all to go home to your mirror and look at yourselves and tell yourselves, if you're capable of doing something, then why aren't you doing it yet? I knew in the moment that I was so low on confidence before I went into every race. I knew that I wouldn't make it. But despite my crash, I knew that that crash is one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my entire life. And now, I'm standing here today knowing that I've made that crash, like passionately saying that that crash was something that definitely taught me a big lesson. And most importantly, never give up and get back into that driver's seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Avni, for such a compelling talk. Up next, we have Hansika Aravetti, who is here to share how shame became her silver lining and helped her find strength in difficult times. Please welcome Hansika to the stage.
Imagine a life where the weight of shame holds you back, where a deeply personal struggle silences your voice and limits your potential. We've all carried this weight in one form or the other, haven't we? A struggle that feels like a private storm, isolating us from the world. Now, imagine something radical. What if this storm held within it a silver lining? What if the very source of our shame could be transformed into our greatest strength? Good evening. I am Hansika Reddy. Shame is something we all face. For years, it held me back. But confronting it changed my life. Tonight, I'll share with you how it can change yours too. At 14, I was battling a condition that few dared to speak of: bedwetting. It wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a source of shame. To manage it, I deprived myself of water, battling dehydration and constant headaches, all to avoid the humiliation of being discovered. I hid the struggle from everyone, believing it was a flaw that defined me. Then came the doctor's verdict. The condition wasn't medical. It was rooted in stress. That realization didn't just change how I approached the issue. It redefined how I viewed myself. I began to see how the shame I carried wasn't a barrier, but a mirror reflecting the pressure to conform to the expectations of society and family. For instance, my parents lovingly insisted I wear a bindi and bangles every day, symbols of our rich cultural heritage. Yet, to me, they felt like a daily reminder of how I fully couldn't be myself. While I understood their intentions, these expectations added to my stress. The weight of trying to meet every expectation became more stressful, feeding a silent shame about my identity. One day, I decided to confront my shame, not with defiance, but with honesty and courage. I sat with my parents and shared how these expectations and daily rituals, though steeped in meaning, contributed to my stress. I expressed my desire to share our culture in a way that felt authentic to me. It wasn't easy, but that conversation unlocked a new dynamic in our relationship. Slowly, I began to let go of the expectations that didn't serve me, reclaiming a sense of self that was true and empowering. Through this journey, I learned something profound. Shame thrives in silence, but it loses its power when we confront it head on. When I embraced my vulnerabilities, I discovered an inner strength I didn't know existed. I realized how shame is a catalyst for growth, a silver lining in disguise. Let me explain the silver lining in 3 ways. Lessons I learned from my personal journey that you can apply in your own life too. First, shame builds resilience. The challenges we hide often test us in ways that build unshakable resilience. My journey with bedwetting taught me to navigate discomfort and stress, and that resilience became a foundation for future success. What's hidden in your life that, when faced, could strengthen you. Second, shame sparks authenticity. When we confront our struggles, we align with our true selves. By stepping away from societal pressures, I discovered my voice and my unique path. Shame, when reframed, becomes a guidepost to living authentically. Third, shame connects us. By sharing my story, I discovered how vulnerability fosters connection. Shame isolates us, but openness bridges that gap, inviting others into our journey. When we share our hidden struggles, we inspire others to embrace their own. Imagine a world where shame no longer silences us, but instead becomes our source of strength. A world where our hidden struggles are seen as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. That's the silver lining of shame. It holds within it the seeds of transformation. So I ask you, what's the weight you've been carrying in silence? What's your hidden struggle? And more importantly, what's the silver lining waiting to be discovered in it? Today, I invite you to take the first step. Start a conversation with a trusted friend, with a loved one, or even with yourself. Share your story, confront your shame, and begin your journey towards turning it into your greatest strength. Because shame, when faced with courage, can build a foundation of a life lived fully and authentically. So let's break our silence and unlock our silver linings together. Don't let shame define you. Let it transform you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hansika, for your thought-provoking session. Our final speaker of the day is Ayan Darod, who learned many lessons while trekking Mount Kilimanjaro. Today, he is here to share with us the lessons he learned and how we can apply them in our lives. Let us welcome Ayan to the stage.
On June 25th, 2024, as the first rays of dawn hit the ice-packed mountains, I stood on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest peak. Having come all this way to finally reach the end, I expected a much more dramatic feeling to overcome me. But as I crumbled down onto the ice, completely exhausted from the past 5 days, flashbacks of each moment leading up to that instant filled my mind. Realization struck that it was those little steps and occasional stumbles that had added up to bring me there. As humans, we often tend to value that end result as a pretty picture, without recognizing the many rough patches that add up to help us reach that end point. While many of us only recognize the accomplishment, I thought it important to bring the focus back on the journey that took me to the summit nearly 6,000 meters high. So today, I will be sharing 5 key lessons I took from the mountain. I'm sure that somewhere, somehow, they will each leave their little mark on all of your lives. From the onset of our trek, challenges began hitting us. June was wet season on the mountain, and on the first day itself, rain hit. As we trekked through the forest, what began as a seemingly gradual uphill quickly turned tiresome with the slippery terrain. We reached our first camp for the night after sunset. Shivering, we quickly went in, hoping to find some warmth. But as we entered, I was clearly disappointed by what I saw. While the expectation for lodging was set right from the start, being a trek in the mountains with limited facilities, I was still a little put off. Coming from a home where luxuries of running water, electricity, and overall convenience were granted, to be suddenly transferred into such an environment definitely took time to adjust to. But that night, I began reflecting on all those small comforts that we so often take for granted. Today, over 2 billion people lack access to clean drinking water. And yet, when was the last time we valued such a resource that so many people still don't have access to? Water is a simple example, but through it lies my first lesson from the mountain. Value the little things. You never know for whom that little is stuck at being a big dream and nothing else. So many of us complain over the slightest of discomforts without once feeling gratitude for every other comfort granted. The next time you start believing you're so unlucky, picture every other person who wakes up each day with worse circumstances but a stronger smile on their face. The second day of the trek was much more physically demanding, a steep 11-kilometer uphill climb. At this point, we were traveling at over 3,000 meters high, and with breathlessness entering the picture, every few steps brought a wave of fatigue. The challenge with mountain summits are they're much more a marathon than a sprint. You can't get carried away by the shorter highs that quickly dissipate. Just like with life, you have to keep the larger picture in mind. As we broke for lunch that day, I knew I couldn't keep going on like this. For context, up until that point, I was mostly flying solo, spending time with my own thoughts. But that break taught me that mountain climbing can never be an individual journey. The next few hours were spent interacting with our guide, the trainers, and my fellow hikers. It helped time pass much faster and distracted my mind from the constant exhaustion that kept piling on. While I was still tired on reaching the summit, I'm sure that it would have been much more challenging had I gone alone the entire way. The point I'm trying to drive home is, while life might ultimately be a solo journey, it's the passengers with us that make it so much more memorable. Our most beloved memories we so often recollect are often those celebrated with loved ones. So whether it be a trek, your work, or even a weekend off at home, it's the company that matters. So don't forget those beside you. It's typically around this point that something called altitude sickness starts to set in. For context, the challenge with mountains are the higher you go, the lesser oxygen there is. Our lungs aren't used to the greater air pressure, and as a result, a 10-kilometer hike that might be normal at sea level becomes seemingly infinite, thousands of meters high. Keeping this in mind, the third day was left for us to acclimatize with a short trek to the famous zebra docks. With most of the time left to ourselves, memories of home started flooding back, especially family. So often, it is those nearest to us that we take most for granted. While everything's going fine, surrounded by friends and co-workers, so many of us forget or ignore family, shifting it to a bottom priority. And yet, in those difficult moments, when those same people aren't around, it's family we go back to and expect the same level of care and comfort from. How is that fair? Each of us has that innermost circle of individuals whom we so often neglect, not realizing that they are the only ones who will always be there for us. Let's recircle back to that group and show them that we value that bond, because it is those relationships that will go furthest with us. Back to the trek, a little refreshed and recharged the next morning, we began our climb to Kibo Hut, the equivalent of a base camp to our summit. It's usually around this point that people start experiencing even more serious mountain sickness, severe headaches, high fever, bad colds. Essentially, the human body begins to falter as your physical health starts failing you. Just like that, around 2/3 of the way to camp, I crumbled down on a single rock amidst the dry alpine desert that so accurately mirrored how I felt inside. Throughout the trek, we had 3 guides accompanying us, showing us the right trail to camp. And while I half lay on that rock as the rest of the group moved forward, the last guide approached, picked up my backpack, lent me a helping hand before moving on as I followed. All that ran in my mind was awe at this simple yet tremendous act. As tourists and hikers to the mountain, success just meant reaching the top. What I'd forgotten was that these guides accompanying us had reached that same point hundreds of times. While we carried basic necessities in our day packs, they carried 25 kg rucksacks filled with food and water for us, and all the while singing songs and keeping us hopeful towards that end goal. Possibly one of the most powerful lessons from the trek emerged at that point. Consumed by our own little bubbles, we feel pride as we boast of our own accomplishments. Little do we recognize the humble heroes around us whose achievements far overshadow our own. As I walked beside my guide, it isn't like he wasn't tired. He was. It isn't like he didn't need a break. He did. He was human after all. But what kept him going was that focus to reach the top. Not for his glory, not for his sake, but because our summit was his single most priority. What could be more selfless than that? That night, we only had 4 hours to sleep, but thoughts of the summit kept me awake. At midnight, we awoke to begin our climb. In the freezing cold, we began the summit push, a sense of numbness overcoming us all. At some point, when the exhaustion and pain have reached their threshold, one doesn't feel anything. The sunrise at 4:30 in the morning brought both warmth and an extra boost to go on. But as every step became more painful, I was stopping every few strides. As I stopped one more time, completely drained, unable to even take the bottle out of my own bag, I felt failure hit hard. In those difficult moments, when my mind and body had failed me, a photo montage began playing of all those simple moments that had led up to that day, that instant. All the people who had supported me, every obstacle we had overcome, every fall we got back up from. That gave me all the determination I needed. The next few hours, I wasn't conscious of my own steps. I just kept walking along, leaning on my poles every few moments, gasping for breath, but then continuing on. I was locked in a zone apart from anything I had ever experienced before. And just like that, as I turned around another bend, I hazily saw 2 hands waving at me, urgently. I squinted and recognized it to be our trainer. That was when I saw the board next to him. I reached Uhuru Peak, the summit. I took a step back, and all I could do was marvel at the grandeur of natural purity around me. How remarkable mountains were. They weren't just summits to climb over. They were journeys into the deepest paths hidden inside us. The toughest of times bring out our true selves because they show us the hidden potential inside us all. If you had told me 6 months ago that I could be at the top of Kilimanjaro, I would have laughed at you. Little did I know that inside us all lies an inner strength and courage to overcome any circumstance we find ourselves in. If we can take that first step, push that extra mile, and step into the uncomfortable and challenging, the valuable lessons and honest lessons will automatically emerge. And by wading through rougher waters, we not only become more aware of the outside world around us, but also the many dimensions inside. Truly, the greatest silver lining you can catch is of yourself. And parts of me that 15 years of life couldn't teach, a 6-day trek revealed. As I stood at that summit, I knew I had conquered not 1, but 2 peaks. One was Kilimanjaro, and the second was inside me, a big mountain of fear, dictating what I could do and what I couldn't, what was possible and what wasn't. As I returned back home, Kilimanjaro would always be there, back in Africa. But that summit inside, that would stay forever. And if you ask me, that was the peak whose journey I shared with you today. My name is Ayan Daror, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ayan, for your incredible talk. As we come to the close of today's event, it is with a heart full of gratitude that I take this moment to acknowledge and thank everyone who made this day not just possible, but truly remarkable. To begin with, we are incredibly grateful to our esteemed guest speakers, Dr. Mani Pavitra and Mr. Ravi Kabra, for gracing us with their presence. Your inspiring words and valuable insights have not only expanded our horizons, but also motivated us to think differently, dream bigger, and act with purpose. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today and for sharing your wisdom so generously. To our student and faculty speakers, your voices and ideas have been at the core of today's event. Thank you for your courage in stepping up to share your thoughts, your stories, and your vision. Each one of you reminded us of the power of ideas to spark change, build connections, and inspire actions. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt thanks to our respected principal, Ms. Farida Fraz, and our vice principal, Ms. Priyanka Bakshi. Your unwavering support, trust, and encouragement have been instrumental in the success of this event. Thank you for believing in the power of platforms like these and for fostering an environment that nurtures innovation, creativity, and meaningful dialogue. I would also like to thank our admin team. Without their efforts, this event truly wouldn't have been possible. A very special thanks to Sanvi Kabra and Shanvi Thupili, my incredible student co-organizers. Your tireless efforts behind the scenes have been nothing short of extraordinary. From planning and coordinating to problem solving and staying calm under pressure. You have been the backbone of this event, and I'm so proud of what we've achieved together. I would also like to thank our student volunteer, Pratyushi Jain. I would also like to extend my deepest appreciation to our faculty advisor, Mr. Deepak Bisht, for his constant support, guidance, and encouragement. Your mentorship and experience have been invaluable in the shaping of this event and ensuring its success. Last but not least, a heartfelt thank you to our wonderful audience. Your energy, enthusiasm, and engagement have been truly the driving force behind today's success. Your presence here today signifies your belief in the importance of sharing and spreading ideas, and we hope that today has been as enriching for you as it has been for us. As we wrap up, let us carry forward the ideas, the inspirations, and the connections we've made here today. Together, let's continue to create a culture where meaningful ideas thrive and where we push boundaries to make a difference in the world around us. I'd like to ask our speakers to stay back and join us on stage for photographs and gifts, and I'd like to invite Ms. Farida to facilitate them with their gifts. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day ahead.